Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josh Snipes, and today we're going to be doing another How to Play an Operator. Now, How to Play an Operator is a series that I started with How to Play Hibana, and it's a series that I plan to carry out through all the operators, whether old or new. And by old, I mean if they make any big changes, nerfs, or buffs to different operators, I will make sure to go and remake the video, or at the very least, give you guys an updated video on that operator. Now, this series is going to be how to play an operator within a team environment, how to play with your team, and kind of the role that you're going to fit on that team. Now, these views are subjective to what I've seen on Pro League, Challenger League, Go4s, how I play, and how I've seen others play. Also, I'll help you whether you are solo queuing or if you're running in a 5-stack. Now remember that different regions have different playstyles and that individual players have personal preferences. But overall, this is exactly how I believe you should play the operator. Anyway, let's start off with how to play Pulse. Pulse comes from the FBI Operator Organization, and that's very important because that means he came as one of the first operators in the game when Rainbow Six Siege first came out of beta, and that's very important to the game because he kind of just paved the way for how Rainbow Six Siege could be played, especially more on a vertical level, and how you could be below or above a site and kind of how you interact with that. Anyways, though, he is a 3-speed, 1-armor operator, and he's definitely one of the most important pieces to a lot of different teams. He also saw a lot of playtime back when the Ying Glaz meta kind of came in and swept through all the different regions. Having someone below playing Pulse was very, very important, especially a lot of teams didn't run IQ too much, so you definitely got away with different kinds of Pulse plays. Now, because Pulse is a 3-speed, 1-armor, he kind of looks like he'd be a roamer, and your guess would be correct. If you're going to use Pulse, I would say 90% of the time you want to use him as a roamer. On coordinated teams, on some objectives, like say lockers on bank or lockers and servers, you definitely want to use Pulse as more of an information gather. A lot of teams do that with Pulse, and they can use the C4 also, but you most of the time will play below or you'll play across the map from the objective, and you kind of try to get those picks and try to get those last minute plant denials. So it's really important to stay alive as Pulse, especially if your whole team kind of revolves around you staying alive. It's very important. Now moving on, we have Pulse's loadout, and his primary, he has 2 guns to choose from. He has the M1014 and the UMP45. Now the M1014 is a shotgun. I wouldn't say use a shotgun. Some people do. I really don't like it. I don't think it does enough damage at range like the SAS shotgun or the GIGN shotgun really does. I mean, I'm sure like the shotguns used to be super OP, so I mean they all got nerfed. So it's up to you. Honestly, I would say like 90% of the time you don't need a shotgun. The UMP's not amazing. It doesn't have too high a rate of a fire and doesn't really do too much damage, but it shoots like a laser, so you can definitely get those headshots pretty easily and control it a lot easier than a lot of the other automatic guns. Now, moving on to the secondaries, I would say there's an M45 and there's the 5.7 USG. Now, if you watch my How to Play Ash video, you know that the M45 is more 1911. I would definitely go, it's your sight preference. Whatever sights you want is what the gun I would go with, because most of the time you need to get a headshot with these pistols. There's not much of a choice between not getting a headshot because it'll take usually a couple shots. The M45 does a lot more damage than the 5.7 does. That's just because it's a bigger bullet. But overall, I would say choose the 5.7 or the 45 on sight preference. Moving on to gadgets, we have the choice between barbed wire and a nitro cell. Obviously, as I said before, you want to use the nitro cell, and there's not really a reason for you to ever use barbed wire. Most of the time, your other teammates will have barbed wire, and if you're playing Pulse, you're going to end up playing below or next to the objective. So you're going to use the C4 and use your Pulse together in order to get picks and in order to get denial plants. Now, how I would run Pulse, this is going to be kind of the loadout that I use. I use the UMP45, I use the angled grip on the UMP45, and I think that the sights are going to be up to you. Honestly, with the new update that came out for the sights that are all going to be fixed, hopefully, it's going to be up to you. I usually run either the reflex or the holographic. It really depends. I'll use a laser just because that's what I prefer, and I'll use a compensator because I don't necessarily need it to go anywhere. It's actually more like a laser even with the angled grip, so you're going to be completely fine without the vertical grip. Moving on to the pistols, I use the 5.7 USG. I like that pistol sights better, but that's just my personal preference. And let's move on to his unique gadget. Now, his heartbeat sensor is like what makes Pulse Pulse and kind of where his name comes from. You can see people's hearts actually beating, hence heartbeat sensor. You can see their hearts beating through the floor, through walls, and it's almost like a wall hack, except you don't have a gun that you can shoot at the same time while you're holding it. You're putting it in front of you, and think of it as you're trying to gather information. Use your pinging a lot when you use the pulse gadget. I especially know when I play below, I won't necessarily C4 the first person I see. I'll call them out to my teammates, especially if all my teammates are alive. Call them out to my teammates so that way they can know who I'm talking about, where they are. Doesn't really matter who the actual operator that I'm trying to ping is, but that they know where someone is or where a couple people are coming in from. You can definitely see it takes intervals, so it's not constant, but there's intervals. But you'll definitely see people pop up, and it's pretty noticeable when they pop up on your screen, so you won't ever really miss someone, especially with the color difference that's on the pulse scanner. It's really useful. Now I'm going to be moving on to the next part of my series called the tips and tricks, and these are the tips and tricks I have for Pulse and how I play Pulse and what else I've noticed. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the counters. Now there's not too many counters to Pulse. The one hard counter is IQ. IQ can actually see you on your Pulse gadget when you are using it, so you have to be really careful on maps that you are below and they're trying to attack that from up top. It's really easy for a IQ to shoot you through the floor, and you might not be paying attention enough to even realize that an IQ until she shoots you. So be careful with that. The kind of soft counter, and it could be a hard counter, but usually soft counter is got to be Thatcher. Thatcher can actually disable your device and your sights, but he can disable your device for a limited amount of time, and this can make it really hard if someone throws a Thatcher in while they're defusing, because you don't know exactly where to throw it from below. Also, if Thatcher throws this thing after you've thrown your C4 and you haven't blown your C4 yet, it can get rid of your C4 also. So be careful when playing against a Thatcher, and be careful when playing against an IQ. Now, in addition to having people that counter him, we have people that he counters. Now, he counters a Finka the most, and Finka's not used too much in competitive play currently, but maybe in the future she might. But Pulse can see, if she uses her ability, Pulse can see a lot farther than he normally would have been able to. So this is really necessary, especially when you're playing against a team that has a Finka. You'll be able to see people a lot farther away than you first thought you could, and it just makes that for that much more information that you can actually gather. Also, if you know how far it is, you can kind of gauge. You'll know that they have the Finka ability enabled, which is also probably a very good call out to have for your team. Now, a trick that I kind of do when I'm playing Pulse, especially if I'm playing below an objective, like say on Coastline or something like that, playing below Penthouse, something like that, I make sure that I play Pulse very patiently. I don't necessarily go for the first pick that I see, especially if I see multiple people. If they line up, they line up, but most of the time they don't, and especially if they've drawn me out already, they already know that I'm below, so they're going to usually be a little bit more cautious. But I usually am pretty patient. I wait for the diffuser to try to go down, or for them to try to get into the objective, try to get positioned to put the diffuser down. But part of that positioning is you staying alive, kind of paying attention, because you're going to be looking up at the ceiling the entire time with your pulse gadget out. Now, you don't want to get caught being on your pulse gadget too much. You're going to end up getting killed, especially if you're not listening to things around you. So the tip that I have for you guys is make sure to use your ears while you're playing Pulse. It's very important that you stay alive, especially if you're going to be one playing below, trying to deny that plant. So use your ears. Also, when you are going to C4 someone, when you pull off your pulse gadget, take a second or two to listen, because if they don't move, or if they do move, you'll hear it or you won't hear it. So if they move, you'll hear them run, or you'll hear them run across the room or something. And you can also kind of follow their footsteps and kind of not have to use your pulse gadget as much. But it's just important to use your ears and see if they move, because if they move, you'll be able to make sure that you don't waste your C4, especially because a lot of people will try to bait out C4s, especially if they know you have a pulse below. So just use your ears and you'll do fine. Now, for my last tip that I want to actually point out is that just because you have a pulse doesn't mean you always need to roam or be off the site with him. An example of this would be on Bank in lockers and servers downstairs in the basement. Now, if you watch Pro League or anything like that, you're going to see that they use Pulse as an information gatherer instead of a roamer or anything like that above the objective, because he's going to play inside Vault or inside Gold Room, and he's going to be giving off callouts on whether or not the plant is going down and letting people know, hey, throw a smoke, hey, throw C4s. And if your other teammates' smokes or C4s don't work, you'll have your own C4 to throw. So it's very necessary that you use him in ways that help your team, and kind of knowing which way, if you want to play him more as an information gatherer, or if you want to play him more as a roamer kind of fragger. These are up to you. These role choices are up to you. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm glad I could come back and do this. I know I said I was going to do this last week. I just got really busy, especially because my girlfriend's birthday. But anyways, we're going to keep grinding out. And the Season 7, Week 5, or Week 6, whichever one it is for the Pro League, is going to be coming out tomorrow. So make sure to take a look at that. I'm just waiting for the Asia Pacific finals to finish up, just so I can report all that kind of stuff to you guys and give you guys kind of the results of that, because I know not everyone follows Asia Pacific too closely, but it's always fun to know. Anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap things up for today. This is gonna be Josh Snipes signing off.
Shit.
Op 4 is defusing a bomb. You need to disable their diffuser.
Up top.
Diffuser located. Disable it.
Hit it.
Whatever. Come on, come on, come on, come on! Yes! Woo! Let's go!
Diffuser disabled.
Smoke, asshole.